you know, I was already in enough. There's hair. I was already in Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Keely here. If you are new to my channel, my name is Keely and I upload a new video every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you end up liking this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, hit that big red subscribe button down below, and double hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload from this channel, and you will always see my face at least 3 special times a week. And today is a requested video from you guys. I have gotten so many questions about how I discovered my gluten intolerance to discovering my lactose intolerance, because it kind of happened like a month apart. So this video is going to be in depth. If you are not into watching long videos, then I'm going to suggest that you click off the video, unfortunately, because if you don't want to listen to me talk about this, then that is your prerogative. But for those of you guys that requested this video, I am doing this for you. And without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so my diagnosis started January of this year, 2019. Happy New Year to me. And I also am going to be looking down at my notebook because I have notes written on what specifically I want to discuss with you guys. So to list off my symptoms, I suffered from firm bloating. It was not just like, you know, cycle bloating or anything like that. Like my stomach looked round and if you touched it, it was hard, like as if I was pregnant. TMI, but diarrhea and constipation. Headaches and migraines every day, no matter what I did, it just happened every day. Extreme fatigue and sharp abdominal pains, and by sharp abdominal pains, I mean like pains where it feels like 1,000 little sewing needles are stabbing your abdomen. A lot of acid reflux, and I constantly was throwing up in my mouth. I never like did the full, you know, throw up, but I did throw up a bit. Constant nausea, and this one has to do a lot with the lactose intolerance. So horrific smelling gas, that is totally TMI, but I have a story time for you guys for that, because before I knew I was I had an intolerance to lactose, I went and I got a Frappuccino from Starbucks. And everything was gluten-free. There was no gluten in there or nothing like that. And I was drinking it just fine. And I went with my mom and her best friend to Walmart. And without me knowing it, I had gas. And I was in shock because as soon as I did it, it smelled so bad. Like, my mom and her best friend thought that it was the guy staying next to us, so they rushed out of the aisle, and I went back, and apparently they didn't hear what I was saying. I said like my stomach was gurgling, I felt weird, and I was like, I'm so sorry. And they're like, wait, that was you? And I was like, oh my god, yes. And I basically sucked up a whole freaking aisle in Walmart. So gas definitely played a big role, and that is how I also know that I accidentally ate gluten or lactose, because my body tells me, and sometimes it's very unfortunate where I'm at when it happens. I'm like, oh no, not again. Menstrual cycles. Ladies, if you have a gluten and lactose intolerance, this is probably going to be affected. I have noticed 2 major things with menstrual cycles. Number 1 is that it will not be regular. It will be an irregular cycle. My cycle has been way worse with being off track than most. And then number 2 is that the pain is more horrific. It hurts so bad. Like, I never had bad period pains like since I first got my cycle. And there was one time since being in Texas, like I woke up, everyone got scared because I was actually crying in the kitchen, like, you know, holding myself, like I was balled up and everything, and I was crying, and my mom was like, do you have your period? And I was like, yeah, and I was like having a meltdown in the kitchen. But now my pains, I can't get up out of bed. when I am on my cycle, I'm always crawling back into my bed, crawling into a ball, like literally knees to chest in my bed. I can't help it because it hurts so bad. It feels like someone seriously like pinching your organs inside and twisting them, but sharply every time a pain comes through. It's horrible. I can't say anything more than that. Like, unless you experience it, you really don't know it, because it's so hard to get people to understand, like, this is what I'm going through. Like, if you're not going through it, you don't know. And I don't say that to be mean. It's the honest to goodness truth. Like, you don't know. And everything that I just listed, the symptoms and everything, that would happen every single time that I ate gluten and lactose. Every time. It didn't matter if it was the tiniest little bit. It happened. So when I first started having the symptoms, my mom and I, of course, started looking on Google, and we were like, okay, so what could this be? And I don't remember what the first thing was that popped up, but I know it was an autoimmune disorder. But then we also found another autoimmune disorder, and it was celiac disease. Now, the one thing that made us start thinking that it wasn't celiac disease was that I wasn't having any weight loss. If anything, I thought that I was gaining weight because I didn't realize that it was bloating. But I would look at myself in the mirror and I was like, okay, I know that I'm not gaining weight like this. I'm not even eating enough to gain weight. So I was looking and I was like, that doesn't make sense because I'm not losing weight, but definitely breads and noodles and everything like that is making me bloat a lot. And the main thing to know if you're trying to figure out if you have a gluten intolerance or celiac disease, just know that celiac disease, one of the main symptoms is excessive weight loss. So I didn't notice that with me, but I still knew something was going on. So that is when I made an appointment with my primary care doctor. And this is where he actually irritated my soul, because I was already in enough discomfort as it was. So he told me to go ahead and take gluten out of my diet. Just cut it out, take it out, and don't do anything else with it. After that, he said to go to a GI specialist. And I was like, okay, I'm cool with that. We can do that. And then while I was waiting to see the GI specialist, I started doing research and I found out that I might have had to go on the AIP diet, which is the autoimmune protocol diet. And that cuts out a lot of food. Very strict, honestly, mostly vegetables and fruits. Like, you have to cut out everything. Like, I will insert a picture of it over here so that you guys can see what all it normally takes out and what it consists of. Also, something that's actually not really bad to do if you're gluten and or lactose intolerant is to maybe try a paleo diet, because I actually eat a lot of fish and it sits lightly in my stomach and it tastes so good. It's awesome. And the first thing, of course, that I did was I started to bring in small gluten-free snacks and do like almond milk, cashew milk, coconut water, lemon water, that sort of thing, because I started the transition easier first, but then before I knew it, we did a whole bing bang shabang gluten and lactose free grocery trip. So I was like, okay, well, this is a lot more than I had anticipated. And pro tip alert, if you're first starting out and you have to go through and figure out what's yours in the house, go through everything first. Your seasonings, dairy, all of your box items, canned items, and if it's safe for you, put a black dot on it with a black Sharpie. And if it's not safe for you, put a big red X on it if it's not safe for you. This just allows you to be able to find what you're able to have easier without having to look at the ingredients every single time you go looking for food. This way, if you do it once, it's done and you don't have to go through and do it again. It was really, really hard for me to make this change, because besides switching to all gluten-free foods, I was told to only have fresh vegetables and fresh fruits. And this was quite annoying to me a little bit when I first started, because I had been living off of canned vegetables, the little fruit cocktails in the cans and everything for a very long time. So switching, I was kind of like, okay, well, this is definitely a lot more labor intensive. I don't know if I like this or not. Of course, I didn't really have a choice. And after I started doing all that and getting used to it, you know, and being happy that almost all my bloating was gone and everything was a-okay, I got to the specialist and she told me because I went gluten-free, in order for them to do an endoscopy, I had to put gluten back in my system for 4 to 6 weeks. And I was like, are you kidding me? Because my primary doctor had told me to take gluten out of my diet before I went and saw a specialist, and the specialist tells me that I have to put gluten back in my diet. So I was very frustrated, very annoyed with that visit, and it caused a lot more pain. I feel like the symptoms actually got worse when putting gluten back into my body. But eventually, I got through it. I was definitely tired and depressed a lot of the time because I would look at the food and I'd be like, I don't even want to eat that, but I have to have it in my system. Because if you don't have it in your system and they do an endoscopy, you won't see the actual effects that it's doing for you. If it's celiac or gluten intolerance, if you have gastritis, if there's an ulcer, you have to have it in your system. So if you ever go to your primary doctor about gluten, make sure you keep it in your diet before you see your GI specialist so that you don't have to put yourself through more pain and suffering. And something else that made me very depressed was thinking of all the food that I couldn't have when I was done. I've basically been gluten-free for 7 months, and I will say this, there's some foods that I miss, but a lot of it I'm kind of like, that was junk food. I mean, there's not a whole lot that I actually miss about it. The main thing for me that was hard about the switch was texture. The texture between gluten-filled and gluten-free food is totally different. So if you're a texture person and you're going through this, just know that's probably going to be your number one struggle because it definitely doesn't taste the same. Some stuff's like, wow, this just tastes better, like a better consistency. It's a better taste. You never know. So here's where the fun happened. So I got all my bloating down. I was perfectly fine. And about a month later, after all that was done, I found out I had a gluten intolerance. I could cut it out. Bloating was done. No symptoms, no nothing. I started having symptoms again the same way, but I didn't have gluten in my diet. And I started thinking to myself, I'm like, what is going on? I actually started getting paranoid because I was like, no, keep your food away from mine. I need to figure out what's going on. And I was eating my stuff and I was like, this makes no sense. I took gluten out. Why am I having these symptoms? And I'm that person where until I figure it out, I actually tend to drive myself crazy. So I was driving my family crazy. So it was a very vicious cycle. This is what caught my attention and it kind of got my mind working. A few days before I realized that I was getting symptoms again, I tried drinking a glass of milk and I spit it out in the sink. It tasted disgusting. It was horrific. I thought it was sour. My family was drinking it just fine. I was like, what the heck? What's going on? I tried having cheese and I was like, this is disgusting. What's going on? And once again, my family was eating it just fine. And I kept trying to eat dairy because, you know, I had dairy every day with almost every meal of mine. And my stomach continued to get more bloated and bloated and bloated until every time I breathed, it hurt. So that's pretty much when I started getting suspicious of my lactose intolerance. So I stopped eating dairy. I let my stomach get unbloated, so I got off of dairy and lactose for a while. And then I had a test. I had a test because I was wondering, hey, is my body telling me that I need to kick this out of my diet as well? So, story time again. On a Taco Tuesday, my family and I always have queso fresco cheese. That's just us. That's how it goes. And it's always refried beans, a meat, red sauce, queso fresco, shredded cheese, and sour cream. Every time. Just your average Taco Tuesday. And I hadn't had any dairy. I hadn't had anything. My stomach was still flat. And I took one piece of queso fresco cheese. I ate it. And it was almost instantaneous that my stomach was bloated, my stomach was hurting, and I actually could not finish my dinner. So that is pretty much how I gave myself a self-diagnosis of lactose intolerance, because the symptoms for the lactose intolerance mimicked the gluten intolerance symptoms. So I was like, okay, I'm not even going to go to the doctor for that. Like, I obviously know what's going on, and I haven't had lactose in my diet for about 6 months now. So that's pretty much where it's at right now. So as of right now, I have been gluten-free for about 7 months, and I have been lactose-free for about 6 months. And in all honesty, it's definitely gotten easier. The only thing that's scaring me right now is, you know, holidays are just around the corner, and I'm kind of scared to see what holidays are going to be like, just because there's definitely a huge risk of cross-contamination. So I'm just like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know how it's gonna go. You guys are gonna be getting a vlog for all holiday meals, and like kind of a little food journal, like lookbook, a digital food book. I'm gonna make one for you guys so you guys can actually see what I'm eating for the holidays. And if you guys have any questions or comments or anything about a gluten intolerance, lactose intolerance, the connection between the two, or anything like that, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. I've been getting messages from you guys and seeing comments that the whole gluten and lactose intolerance thing coming back to back after IBS is more common. I had no idea how common it was. So I'm just like, this is crazy. I had no idea. Like, honestly, if you guys sit around in the comments and you see some of my previous videos and you guys look at the comments and see what people are saying, I'm just mind blown with how common it is for these 3 things to happen right after each other. That is all that I have to say for my gluten and lactose intolerance, for more of an elaboration and how I found out about the two. And yeah. So if you like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, hit that big red subscribe button down below, and double whack that notification bell so you'll never miss another video from me, because if you don't hit that notification bell, you'll never know when I upload a new video, which means you won't see this face 3 special times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Hashtag thank God it's Friday. So yeah, and if you want a like, comment, shout out, and featuring in one of my future YouTube videos, screenshot this right here, then and share it on all your social media, and then let me know down in the comments below. And the purpose of that pose right there, that screenshot, is that we are not going to let the gluten intolerance, lactose intolerance, and IBS defeat us. That is the main gist of my channel. I want to get it across that it doesn't matter what you have, what you're going through, and what people don't see in you. It doesn't define you. And it took me forever to finally realize that about my intolerances and IBS and everything of the sorts, because I started letting control my life. But we can take our lives back. We don't have to stop doing what we love and eating and drinking what we love, wearing what we love, just because we have a few obstacles in our lives. And without further ado, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye! You know, I was already in enough. There's hair. I was already in enough.